Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons, and here with me on this segment is Josh Williams from GE Teach. Now, Josh has actually been with us on two of our past episodes before. I believe actually you were in there. I believe it was the sixth episode. I was actually looking back in the last couple of days to validate which episodes those were. But it was like sixth episode back in 2012. You were one of our first guest speakers. And then again, I want to say a couple years later. So it has been a number of years since we've talked with you last. And Josh, go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, and what is GE Teach?
All right, yeah. So as Adam said, my name is Josh Williams. I'm a high school T district just north of Austin, Texas, and I live and teach in Austin. And I did start a site, geteach.com, years ago. I think it was back in 2011 or so. And what it was a Earth API tool to compare two worlds side by side. And then it later becomes a Map API website. So between Google Maps, Google Earth, QGIS, and ArcGIS Online, we kind of try to create a classroom that's kind of more project-centered and much less kind of sage on the stage, PowerPoint-centered.
So it's you basically made a web platform using the Google Earth plugin at the time where users your students can go on and interact with different geography projects, parallel to the stuff go ahead.
Yeah, the whole point of that was actually just the necessity to share. So this was back before kind of Google Drive and to share files, and I just wanted to share some files with some students, and that's kind of how the project started. And now, I guess more teachers and more students get a benefit from it just because of that.
Awesome. So you have it up here on the side. How about you walk us through the application? I'm going to switch over real quick to your screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this is, again, probably about the fifth or sixth version of it. Originally it was the Earth API. And then Google actually had something called Map Engine back in 2014-ish time as they deprecated the Earth API. So I switched over to Maps Engine. And then after that, they got rid of Maps Engine. So now I host everything either raster tiles, so pyramid tile scheme, or via GeoJSON. And you can see that they mirror each other, their movement. And I can select different layers on what I call the canvas 1 and canvas 2, or left and right. You do that by selecting this map, and then just select a data set. And once you do that, you have all of these layers that show up. So what I just clicked on was Blue Marble from NASA. And I'm going to go ahead and put Blue Marble on the second side too. So right now, what I'm looking at is 2 blue marbles. And I'm going to change the left one to January. And then I'm going to turn the right one to class. In a geography class, this is very much kind of what do you see, and then why is it that way? So for example, there's a whole lot of snow in Siberia on the left side showing January, and on the right side there's no snow, right? Because that's Earth-Sun relationship. It's a very visual representation of what's going on, just seasonal. And then you can also look at other kind of fun interactions. So the one that kind of I show most often is the CO2, which I put on the left, and then on the right I'm going to put in the vegetation. So you can see in January there's a whole lot of CO2 in the northern hemisphere. And then I'm going to switch this to August, and you see that there's a decline in CO2. So I'm going to, spoiler alert, right? I'll change the vegetation index in August, and you can see vegetation. So that's just occurring as the plants are absorbing that CO2. There's also what I call vector data, right? If you go to human geography, and you can do similar comparisons as far as the Human Development Index that the UN puts together. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the And on the right side, I'm going to change this to demographics because some of the index numbers, some of the numbers that they index are the UN indexes is kind of demographic data. So we can look at infant mortality rate and kind of compare the infant mortality. These are taken from the CIA fact book. You can just click on one. So like Chad's infant mortality rate, for example, is 85.4 per thousand. And then the United States is 5.8. So there's these different kind of spatial distributions that you can see at this, what I call scale, state being countries in this case. So there's a lot of different tools. I think probably the favorite ones that kind of people enjoy the most is Anthropocene. And this is a very debatable topic. The idea is that we're in a time era, a temporal era, where there's not really a place on the Earth that humans aren't impacting. So it's being kind of a new era. And I say it's debatable because it's a little bit arrogant of us in the moment to decide that we've created our own era. But two, most of the time eras are on a geological kind of temporal scale. But from here, you can look at.
So this is more than just a nice visualization. What you said, this is a layered set of data. It's showing the different transportations, how humans are all connected, right? To different transportation networks, and more than that, even communications as well.
Right. So I'm going to hit city background, and I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to click multiple layers. I'm purposely not going to choose the air traffic right now because it kind of clutters the map a little bit. So for example, I hit shipping traffic. So what you're seeing on your screen, if you're able to see it, is kind of the shipping traffic between the different countries. And the idea is the more connected you are, the higher the likelihood that you are kind of more developed. The less connected you are, you might have issues with development because it's hard getting goods and services out. It's hard getting ideas out as well, or spreading ideas. So the more connected you are, kind of the more information is. There's roads, for example. I'm going to turn off roads and hit on transmission lines, and then I kind of zoom into the U.S. area. So you can see how connected we are in the U.S. as far as transmission lines goes, but you can also look at where Europe is kind of going into Russia and kind of down the train line for Russia, and then looking at roads as well.
I'm just curious, for each one of these data layers that you have within here, do you have a kind of a source link in terms of finding as where you got the information from?
So if you click this description, there's a little eye at the top right of the windows. You'll see the description, and then you also see the credit. So this comes from, looks like NOAA had it along with Columbia University. So all of the data is cited in the little information window where I get it from. So again, when I change over to demographics, for example, the description window changes, and then it'll say where it came from. So this came from the World Fact Book. And that's kind of how it all gets credited and cited, because I use government or agencies. So make sure you pay your taxes for all of the data.
So GE Teach obviously is more than just showing stories through maps. You have your students interact with this as well. So you have a couple areas within this, selecting the map menu, for example, where users can add their own links for the files, or connect to Google Drive, for example, to load their own files within the system, right? So how does that work?
Yeah, so the way that this works is if you create a KML, and not all KML tags are recognized by the Maps API, but a lot of them are. So for example, here's tornadoes in 2013, all of the tornadoes in the United States. And I can take the shared URL right here from my maps. And because it's vector information, I can just copy it into this input box, and then just click the My Maps, and you'll see it come over here and populate onto the the map itself. And then you can click it, of course, and then get all the data that came in from again, they have spreadsheets for, I don't know, I can't remember how many years it went back, but I just chose 2013 because there was a pretty powerful tornado that went through kind of my grandparents' backyard at the time.
Awesome. I mean, so and so, what kind of files can users bring over?
Pretty much any KML file. So the problem with KMLs is that, or the Maps API, you have to look at the documentation for it. But the Maps API, for example, it can't do timestamps or stuff like that. It kind of cleans some of the KML out. So there's mostly, if it's vector data, if it's points, lines, and polygons, plus very simple style balloons, then it'll work. If it's pretty complex on the because it's a Maps API issue, it's a Google Maps issue, not necessarily a my issue, but I guess it turns into my issue.
Understood. Now, GE Teach isn't just available for your students or for you to use. You've actually made it openly available for anybody to access from the web at geteach.com. Do you watch the web traffic for that? Do you get occasional spikes in and folks using it outside of your what is your classroom?
Yeah, it gets pretty popular, especially during the States our school year. The traffic definitely picks up, kind of slows down, and probably July really is probably the slowest month, and it picks back up in August. But yeah, it's used throughout the world.
Well, how often? So how with outside your own school district, or outside your own school classroom, how many people have you actually? How many other teachers have you shared this with and got on board with actually using this actively?
Oh, it's in the tens of thousands.
Oh, wow. Okay. Incredible. But this isn't the only tool that you use. You actually, within the geography class, you've actually have your students use actual GIS applications such as ArcGIS and QGIS too, right?
Yeah, we use mostly ArcGIS Online and QGIS. And the reason why mostly I use, well, first off, probably I like it. I like the open source kind of part of QGIS. So the documentation, the kind of, and they just, I just like the open community that's built around it. But it's really easy. ArcGIS Online is a much easier tool for the students to use because it's kind of the online version is very web-based, and it's a very simple. And mostly use QGIS just to join data to shape files. So we'll go grab, for example, a shape file from the census, maybe at a level of aggregation as a county or something like that. And then we'll join the census data with the census shape file. And then we'll import all of that into ArcGIS Online.
So you feel like the QGIS in terms of gathering or aggregating data is a little bit kind of a simpler workflow than using ArcGIS Online directly.
Yeah, ArcGIS Online.
And how they complement each other.
Yeah, with ArcGIS Online, you have to set different permissions, and then for the join feature, and my students don't have that permission, just myself and my colleague. So kind of some of those analysis tools in the online, we kind of have to be just because, like I said, the students don't have the permissions to really use it. They're not set up as users that way.
Okay. You also use the how much do you go back to the Google Earth web version or Google Earth hard client at all? And I see maybe you have another tab up, right? That shows.
Yeah, I have a couple tabs up for you because GE Teach, basically all I have to do is update the information, and then every once in a while I'll see a cool map that we should bring in that kind of helps the curriculum, and I'll bring it in. So for example, I think the 4 or 5 years ago when we last spoke, there was like 120 layers, and now there's 180 plus layers.
Wow.
That's just through our curriculum going, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had this? And then I'll just that weekend go figure out how to do it You know, there's a couple of times, twice I know for sure. I was like, all right, students, we got a project. Let's figure out how to get this into GE Teach. But for the most of the last couple of years, I've been mostly dealing with creating KMLs and projects for the web version of Google Earth, and this is kind of the fun thing that I get to do often. So this is, for example, I'm going to just turn this KML on. This is GET. So this is kind of what GET used to look like, with two globes next to each other. There's only one.
I do recall it was more 3D back in the day when you had the plugin working with it.
Yeah. So it was kind of my dream is to actually have a globe and a map. So this is the same blue marble. There's January. I'm going to switch it to August, and you'll see that over Siberia, once again, the kind of snow disappeared. But in that panel, this large panel, full screen, and that will actually take it to the API with Google Earth at the same time. So now I have the 2D version. And of course, I can go back here and click it back to January as well. So that's kind of.
It's fascinating that you can manipulate the URLs like that. Sorry, with the web version, you can do a lot more with it than most people realize. Just logging in on from the front end.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's kind of the reason why I'm really into the Google Earth for Web version, is it comes together kind of the things you can do on the Google Earth. So if you think of these large panels as nothing but a 480 pixel by 100% height web page, and you can have it interact with the globe. So you get your media, so this image at the top, you get your textual data, and then Google Earth that you can manipulate as well. And you can do some really cool, fun things. So for example, I mean, the basic tool, here's just a real basic version of the tool, which is fantastic. You can create these full screen slides, and you just navigate through the stories. So this is man-made disasters, for example. And this literally took me probably an hour to do. There's 21 different scenes in here. But it's very simple to set up your camera.
So I recall something, and this is just doing the story. Yeah. So you can take advantage of building stories within Google Earth now, on the web version, which is something you can make tours of within the thick client for years. But adding individual place markers and doing little tours within the web version, that's a fairly recent feature that they didn't have when it first came out, and you've just kind of taken that to the next level.
Yeah, it was the content creation tool came out last week, so a week ago Wednesday. So it's super new, and it's very simple to do as far as that template. But I'll walk you through it here in a second. But you can get real advanced as well. So here for example, is neighborhoods world apart. So this looks like the juxtaposition between different neighborhoods, and over here it's still using their content creation tool. But instead, so for example, I can click on that in the map, and I'm just goofing off, and you can see these areas that are where you can see there's high concentration of wealth right next to kind of poverty. And the cool thing I really enjoy using Google Earth more than a lot of the other platforms is if I click this click here bonus, it's going to fly me in. And now I'm looking at a totally different scale. So here's the street view. So there's the kind of shacks. And if I just look up the apartment complex or the condos that are overlooking these shacks right here, which is a very interesting story to tell. That's very easy to do when you have all of that imagery and all of that street view built into the platform.
For those of you watching the show, promise you the frame rate of Google Earth is much faster than that. It's just the streaming can't keep up with the fly through on his end through the for the bandwidth. So you're not seeing the full, glory of smoothness of Google Earth. You're seeing it kind of a frame by frame as through the podcast here. So it's not so, but we are seeing the end results when the tour finishes at each point. So. Yeah, it's a lot smoother in person.
Oh yeah, I can't see that, but the
oh no worries. I just want to give a caveat there. I swear, folks who are watching Google Earth is much smoother. It's a little bit choppy when you're looking at when it's streaming over the video. So
yeah, they spent a lot of time making it really smooth.
Yeah.
I'll show you the complete power if you give me a second. So,
yeah, go for it. We just have to maybe move the globe a little slower.
All right. Well, I'm not going to be in charge of it.
Oh, no worries.
The way that
you're going through a tour here.
We're in a tour right now. I'm about to hit present, and I'm going to go to the third scene, and I'm going to back off here in a second. And again, I'm trying to show everyone, or as many people as possible, like the coolness of like HTML with Google Earth. So this right here is a video that's going to play in the corner, and there's time.
Which is fascinating because now you can play videos within the web version of Google Earth. It was difficult to integrate that before.
Yeah, it was for years, especially on a Mac for some reason. It was really challenging to put a YouTube even in there. So I'm gonna, and what's going on? There's timing events that are occurring where it's going to move the camera at certain second marks in the video.
Our cotton leaves the United States and goes around the world to Colombia, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, where it goes from plant to fabric, with barely a human being involved. Just lots and lots of cool machines. Which we said.
Okay, so it's playing the video and it's hopping through each of the points of the chapters automatically.
Right. Yeah. So the whole thing's set up just to kind of set and forget, right? So you play out the chapter, and then if you wanted to explore a place, you could always just go back and drop Peg Person down, for example. I just paused it, actually explore the place.
So it's each place mark set on a timer, or is it just automatically go to the next point at the end of the video?
It's set up on a time within the video. So what's going on is there's a function that's listening to the video, to the seconds of the video. So it's saying, okay, between second 5 and second 5.5, fly here.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. That's amazing.
Yeah. So like this is the really cool kind of potential in this platform is, again, mashing together HTML to the Earth itself.
So I think I commented to you this. I mean, this is not like, I think this news wasn't as advertised as it should have been. But at the same time, I think a week or two ago, Mapbox came out with their story maps per se, and unfortunately, and this is where I kind of thought it was really funny, because they always said it was like, oh, you don't need any coding, you can do this maps, take advantage of these story maps within Mapbox, and they ended up just releasing on GitHub, and it required some developer experience to extract all these modules and put it all together just to use it. So I thought that was amusing, because I'm like, well, why? We just use something like Google Earth, or it's more open source. If you're going to create something if you're going to say something is developer friendly, you got to make sure it's purely dummy proof, and you don't need development skills to do it, right? So, and I think this is much simpler, and you don't really need the developer skills to do it all. You need some understanding behind how some of the features work, but you don't need to go in there and write code.
Yeah, for the Planet Money one I just showed you do, but I can, if you'd like, I can show you a real quick way of Yeah, because
My point is, you don't have
right?
to if you don't. Yeah, you don't have to if you don't want to, right? So you
Yeah,
have the option to do something more advanced or simple.
yeah. So I'm going to just create a simple project here, and I'm going to title it project. And I'm going to add a place mark, and I'm just going to put my place mark right here on the bridge. And this is the Congress Avenue bridge, but we call it the Bat Bridge. And then just edit the place. And again, I'm going to make a two-point story image searches. So what I did was I clicked the camera, and it works just like every other kind of Google Drive tool that you've ever used before, like Docs or Sheets or whatever. This is a bridge, right? And yeah, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture the screenshot, because this is what I think will help anybody learn how easy it is to create a story in Earth, is use the imagery. They pay a ton of imagery. So I'm going to capture this view. So that means I'm going to fly over here, my first scene. I'm looking towards the state capitol. And then I'm going to put another point right on the state capitol. And then I'll call this another point. If I could get my finger off the shift key, there we go. And I'm going to tilt the camera around slowly. I'm holding the shift key and I'm moving the camera. I'll just go right here. I'm going to capture the view there. And then it's just as simple as presenting. So that took, what, a minute for me to do 2 scenes? 2 minutes to do 2 scenes with the title, short description, and then I'm just flying over to the next part. So that's what I think you're talking about, Adam. Just
absolutely,
there's entry.
Yeah.
A very low barrier or low entry point, and you can create something really cool, or you could learn HTML and have some fun and make either other cool stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. With this same tool, you can go as simple or as advanced as you want to. You don't have to. You don't have to. No development experience. Download this whole. Wait, what? There's like 20, 30 modules. How do I put all this together?
Yeah.
So.
If you have any dependencies whatsoever, right?
Right. So with that said, between Google Earth, GE Teach, ArcGIS, and QGIS, all these different tools, when students are given a presentation, or what do you have them use the most in terms of when they're given maybe a presentation on a geography project or trying to tell a story for you? What do you have them do?
If I need the image, it depends on what I need. So if it's imagery based, so if it's something about movement or something, and I want 3D imagery and I want a nice movement of the camera, then I'll use Earth. If it's very strictly kind of data based, I'll switch over to QGIS and ArcGIS Online because I don't need the imagery, and it's easier for me for the students to go from a CSV file to a finished project, right? So that's kind of the way most of it works. I know that in the past, you've asked and other people have asked, like, how do you teach this? And normally I build something like this for the students, where we have like day 1, day 2, all the way to day 5.
You actually have a curriculum built on a website that they can walk through.
Yeah, so it's just the Google Sites page that I create real quickly. So for example, this was creating a Voyager-like story, and day 1 was using KML and how do you actually code KML. So it's kind of a video through the lesson. And I don't show this to them at first. Most of the time I have them struggle, and then tell them how to do it, have them struggle, and then show this after, or the block cycle after, to see if they did it kind of the most efficient and came up with a better way of doing it. I'll go home that night and I'll make a video based off of the better way that they did it as well. But this just gives a record of what the students did and what I did. That way, if I want to do it next year, I can kind of remind myself, well, how did we do that? I forgot,
So how many years have you been building this particular project up? This curriculum for getting folks started?
So this, I think that was just one project. So every project I do, I create something like, and if I don't get around to making a site, I'll at least make the kind of the videos for it, so the students can go back and practice with the videos.
Is this site open as well, or is it kind of closed to folks you get permission to?
Oh no, it's open. It's just I never really push these things out. It's really for the students, but I always make things open. I'll share them on Twitter.
Okay.
And some people watch them, and some people don't watch it. But if you follow me at GETeach, these things come up. Projects. So probably about 3 or 4 of them a year. Or if I
and we'll be sure to grab a number of your links and either post in the show notes for the video in a few days when it's released, as well as the audio file notes, and somewhere on our website as well. So we'll grab all these links and share them out.
And if it's really cool, I'll just put it on my blog. So at geteach.com/blog, you can see kind of everything that I tinker with and play with during kind of where I keep most of everything that I really want to make sure that people see. So like, for example, this authoritative bias in maps. This is my first day lesson that I've been doing for years. And I just finally said, okay, well, I'm going to do a similar lesson every year. So I'll just put it in one place to it.
No, that's great. It's a nice central location to grab all the projects you have and share them with everybody. Folks can watch it. And do you ever have any students come back to you after what they're with you years later, and come back to you for resources and things like that, or share their how the skills they've learned from you develop into something more evolved?
Yeah. On occasion. I mean, those are kind of the better days of teaching, when the students reference back something that they did again, I teach freshmen, and they're freshmen in college now or something like that, and they'll send an email back or ask a quick question like, hey, I remember doing something like this. Can you remind me how we did that? Which is always fun to send back up to the universities.
Awesome. I get the kind of feedback from folks who kind of just start to learn it, but all of a sudden say, just they carry it forward and they're still working on something similar down the road. Got to be a little bit more. It's got to be rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've joked about it on occasion, but it's just like just learning how to work a spreadsheet. Skill never goes away.
No, that and PowerPoints. As much as you can make these fancy story maps, somehow it goes back to PowerPoints eventually. So, or spreadsheets in the data, KML or GeoJSON. I think I was right. I was talking to you about this before in terms of with all the fusion table data I'm trying to export out of Google Drive right now. You can export in GeoJSON, shapefiles, or KML, but at the end of the day, my preference is just CSV or spreadsheet data, just because I can manipulate it and turn it into pretty much anything I want. So it's very flexible.
Yeah, and it seems like just about every tool you come across will ingest a CSV file, right?
Absolutely. I don't think those are ever going away. I mean, I get it. They have like a lot more web tables, BigQuery or Bigtable on some of these cloud platforms. But at the end of the day, what are they really? They're still spreadsheets, even if they're in the cloud. So,
but even in BigQuery, I think you can. I know that, and the BigQuery stuff I've been messing with, they still export in CSV.
They still export, but also they have an option to link into, I think, Google Sheets as well. So, you can't leave it one way or the other. And honestly, the interfaces within the spreadsheets, in my opinion, even if you have developer experience, they're a lot easier to manipulate within the spreadsheet UI than it is in the the BigQuery, Bigtable, the developer consoles. So
Yeah, yeah, and a lot more documentation, I guess, because sheets have been around forever.
absolutely. Anything else you'd like to share? I mean, something I want to ask you about. About a week or so ago, you were in a conference, right? It was a Geo for Good or something like that. What were you? Where were you at?
Oh, yeah, that was. I think that was. I don't know if that was September, October.
Okay, a little bit longer than that. Where were you at? You were at were you at Google?
Yeah, so I'm pretty fortunate in the fact that I get every once in a while, about once or twice a year, I get to fly up to kind of the Mountain View area, or Sunnyvale in this case. And this time I got flown up there to do sessions on kind of what I just showed you, really, before it got launched, to Geo for Good at the Geo for Good Summit with a whole bunch of scientists and Geo for Good users as well. And it was a great experience. I mean, it was fantastic summit, and had a lot of good time presenting. But I also got the opportunity to help Rebecca Moore move her keynote story over to this web-based version of Google Earth. She was with her, and it was really fun watching her kind of retell that story through the web version of Earth.
And Rebecca Moore, she's in charge of Geo for Good or something. Is that I know she's a computer scientist, and she's a big advocate of the Google Outreach program, right? So
yeah,
Google Earth Outreach program.
Yeah, she's the director of the Google Earth Outreach, which has kind of Earth Engine and kind of Google Earth underneath their umbrella.
But just the fact that how did you get into touch with her? How'd you end up helping her with her presentation?
Yeah, so I guess years ago, it was probably through geteach.com, right? So years ago, I was invited to go to a Geo Teacher Institute in Mountain View to help teach teachers how to use Google Geo tools. I've been doing that every year that they've had it since probably 2012 or 2013 or something like that. So I've known that community for a little while, and it was about 2 weeks before the summits, and said, hey, they knew I could build the KML, so they just kind of said, hey, can you see what you can do and build this, kind of recreate this, and kind of that's how it happened. So I get kind of a lot of requests for building I get some requests for building KMLs and stories and stuff like that, kind of all the time. And this one was one where you can't say no when the director of Google Earth Outreach wants your help. You don't say no, right?
I know, right? I wish it needed to be kind of some kind of general discussion or post board, because there's a lot of folks out there with that skill set that can help you out, or help other folks out too. So,
yeah.
But if you're in high demand, that's a great thing. So folks know you for the resource and what you do.
There's a demand.
Yeah.
I don't know how about high demand, but there's a demand somewhere.
Yeah, right. Don't see you on the listing for Fiverr yet or anything like that. So getting some extra cash on the side for.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, that's amazing. So just the fact that you met Rebecca Moore and you helped her with her presentation. Any interesting talks there that, other than her presentation specifically, and I had a chance to watch that, is a really awesome discussion. Anything else that you saw there that was of interest?
Earth Engine based. What I really liked about it was kind of classification, tuning machines, all of this data that's pretty readily available on Earth Engine. So like Landsat data or Sentinel data, and kind of tuning up the machines to be looking for certain spatial phenomenon. So what used to take people years and years to do, machine and like that. So the science that can come out of this technology is fantastic. You just have to teach a machine to look for stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the technology moving forward with machine learning, object detection, or computer vision in general is quite impressive with what's coming out and what's actually being what's capable of being done in the cloud infrastructure and scaling those machines up to work in very large problems. Obviously the biggest issue is training data, but Google more than others has an advantage there with as much data as they've purchased or have access to with their global reach and their user base. So,
that's what most of the scientists were doing. They were, training the machine, right? And just the human impact that we have at this moment in time to kind of better the planet. It's really cool to see people working on this at scales.
Awesome. Well, I have one more separate question for you. Is your geography class, is that something that, how outside the normal curriculum is this with as much technology and kind of out of the box that, I've never heard any other teacher doing something like, with all the, the diverse technology that you're using specifically for your class, but for geography in general, how different than this is from a standard curriculum or, something that folks would typically think that you would learn just based off of trying to pass the SATs or something like that?
Yeah, I don't. That's a really good question because I keep running across these teachers that are doing just fantastic, phenomenal stuff with their students. I know that there's a lot of. I think geography is a discipline where these technologies kind of have an easier access point because geography has technologies that are specifically built for the discipline. So you're not having to find a technology and wedge it into your discipline. I mean, GIS is specifically built for looking at the Earth, right? Looking at space, which makes it relatively easy. Advantages I have is that I work at a great school and a great district that kind of allows us, myself and my colleague in particular, kind of the freedom to and use these technologies, understanding that that the knowledge gained from these experiences is going to far outweigh something that they make on an SAT or some sort of other standardized test, so that they'll be able to take forward, right? So it's not just you take the test, it's over, you get your score, and then you submit it to a school. It's you go into this project, you learn this technology, even though you might not be able to recall it 5 years later or 6 years later, you will be able to recall the experience and maybe be able to more quickly get the learning experience. So as far as uniqueness, I don't know, because I meet so many fantastic teachers. But I do know that geography as a discipline has some advantages that others don't have.
Okay, no, that's good. So it's awesome that your school gives you that flexibility to do what you need to do to teach the students in a unique way. Definitely, I think there's a lot of folks who are looking for new ideas and how much flexibility they have with what else is out there. And you've definitely shown that there's a lot of ways to teach students and remain on topic. That's for sure. So I think a lot of folks worry that technology, it's easy to get distracted. And I think this isn't one of those cases.
Well, I mean, the students are great. And maybe the worst case, if the technology does get distracting, they learn the technology. They learn something, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, as a teacher, you just want to create the space and then students have the experience of learning. And yes, you're guiding it and making sure that you're getting all of your, we call them TEKS, essential knowledge and skills on the journey. But yeah, it really is just build relationships with students, create a safe place for them to explore learning, and learning will take place.
Excellent. Well, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here, Josh?
It's a pleasure talking to you.
No, that's great. No, it's been a great discussion. I appreciate you coming on. Once again, Josh Williams from GE Teach. So that's geteach.com. And he also, once again, has a blog, geteach.com/blog. Is that correct? And then and we'll add the other websites, URLs that you mentioned, like I said, within the show notes from all the different distributions we do from Project Geospatial. And for everybody, I encourage you to watch our YouTube channel, Project Geospatial on YouTube. But we also are on podcasts through, I want to say, 8 different networks now. So if you feel like just going for a drive and listen to a discussion on geospatial topics, feel free to listen in. Anchor.fm is our primary, anchor.fm/Project Geo. But you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and many more. So check us out. Once again, I'm Adam Simmons for Project Geospatial with Josh Williams with GE Teach this episode. Thanks for listening.